India and China will start direct flight between the nations, and this decision could affect India-China relation to a major extent. Indian Foreign Minister has said that it is another step towards the ties being gradually normalized. There have been no direct flights between India and China since 2020, following a deadly troop clashes on their shared Himalayan border. But over the past year or so, Delhi and Beijing have been working out rebuilding their relationships, including taking steps to de-escalate tensions on the border. Now I have Devesh Singh Maini with us, international affairs expert. Sir, welcome again. We are talking about the India and the China relationships, and soon, after this month, we are going to start direct flights between the two nations, which is halted for almost 5 years now. So, Ganzhou Baiyong International Airport has also indicated plans to promote additional routes such as Ganzhou Delhi in future. So, first of all, the very basic question I want to ask, that what it means from the Indian perspective.
So, just to provide basic information, so it's basically so far 42 flights and 6 cities. That is the what the agreement is about. So, and 42 flights in a week and 6 cities, right? Now, as we discussed earlier, from India, the main airlines will be Indigo and Air India.
The first Indigo is the first.
Indigo is the first, and then Air India also.
Officially announced.
From the Chinese side, there's China Eastern, there's Shandong, there's Sichuan, and there are a couple of others. China Eastern is one. Now, Guangzhou is the economic hub. So, the Indian community, the Indian business community has linkage, and this was one of the reasons, because see, what was happening was business was going on, trade was going on, but people had to go through indirect routes. So this is
to take the Thailand and the
exactly Singapore and all that. In terms of people to people, it's a good beginning. It symbolically, I think it's a very good, and the fact that it's happening during a very auspicious time, the sort of the festive season. So the symbolism is very important. The question is that can we move beyond this? And one more point I'd also like to add, there was also a rise in the number of Chinese tourists. Before COVID, there was a slow rise. And even China, apart from Indian businessmen, had become, a lot of Indian tourists had started visiting China as well. So the tourism sector will also get, not just business again, tourism will also get a boost. Now, the question is, will this lead to any other breakthrough in the economic sphere? So, one, we need to look at, India and China and have been, so the Prime Minister, for instance, when he went to China, he went in connection to the Shanghai Cooperation Summit, SCO Summit in Tianjin, right? Then India will also very soon will be getting the presidency of BRICS. So there India and China have to work together. There will be differences over economic, but they have to work together, they have to find a working. Now, what is, as they say, what is the main problem, the main bone? That is the trade deficit with China. And that, I think, in 24-25, it had risen further to about, like we're discussing, 99 billion, which is very high. And given the fact, but we also need to bear one more thing in mind. One is the bilateral relationship where India has to work out how we look at the trade deficit. But there is also something called the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or the RCEP, which India pulled out of in 2019. The main worries, the first worry was that Chinese goods will flood the Indian market, because China was obviously part of the RCEP. It's a 15-member grouping, you have ASEAN countries, you have Australia, New Zealand, China, Japan, they're part of it. A lot of people are raising this question whether India could rethink vis-a-vis the RCEP. Given the fact that certain commodities which will get impacted by the Trump tariffs do need alternative markets, this could be given a thought. Some people have been saying that, but at the same time, the obstacles are more than the opportunities. So as yet, for instance, trade deficit is an issue. With China, tensions have reduced, but you can't really predict anything else. And when you get into some sort of trade agreement like this, a geopolitical situation, also you need to read.
And also China has a very, their government is very unpredictable.
That's there.
Yeah.
But also today, in fact, there has also been recently, it's Chinese economist has also said that China could give more access to Indian goods if India joins the arts. That is also one thing which is there. But still, I think given the overall situation, and it's not only that, it's not only the China factor, it's also a worry about the dairy sector being impacted because then you have to open up the dairy sector to countries like New Zealand and Australia and all that. And in the past, when India pulled out from the RCP in 2019, that was also one of the major reasons. And doing so at a time when India has taken a stance that during our trade negotiations with the US, we will safeguard the interest of
local vendors, yeah.
Farmers, dairy farmers, and the fishery sector. It's very tough to look at that. But if there are some tweaks, probably there can be a rethink, but I don't think that will go very far. So what is there? I think basically, yes, I think China can think of because I may also add that India has also eased out some restrictions which it had imposed in 2020 in certain sectors like auto components, then renewable, some 3-4 commodities like that. So if you could incrementally look at some sort of easing out, but still I think it's a very uphill task to reduce that. I mean, China will really need to provide a lot of access to India and give, which I doubt will happen to that degree. Incrementally, things could improve, the deficit could go down. But I think still on the whole, symbolically, all these moves are very positive because in spite of all the differences and everything else, I mean, Prime Minister also very rightly said that if you look at Asia and globally, if you look at it, China and India have a very important role to play. And both of them, one in the context of the global south and with the US policies being so unpredictable, it's even more important that they at least have a working relationship on important global issues. So otherwise, if you don't even have a working relationship, even for the global order, it's even more uncertain. So maybe on issues pertaining to the global south and important global issues, if India and China actually work together, find some common ground. And I think some sort of people-to-people contact linkages, they're always very positive. And even between universities, I think they should, I mean, obviously you have to have restrictions and everything. It has to be done in a sort of pragmatic manner with everything else. But I think this is certainly the resumption of flights, and it may lead to some other developments in the economic sphere. And it would also be interesting to see that how India and China work together within BRICS. That would also be interesting.
Sir, I also want to ask that why do you think that China has opted for a lighter tone towards India, like in the recent past? Specifically, if we talk about since the Donald Trump has levied tariffs against India, the 25%, and then it was rose to 50%, and then it was reduced back to 25%. Then from that point of time, we are noticing that China has opted for a lighter tone towards India. So what could be the possible reasons for it?
I think both sides. I think India has also taken a very pragmatic stance. Otherwise, given what happened in May 2025 during the India-Pakistan conflict, China, support. But I think India has sort of, to some extent, not total. If it had totally deaffinated, then a lot of other things would happen. To some extent, a pragmatic change has occurred that we can't just deaff. It's a very important relationship which can't only be linked with one of our neighbors. You have to go beyond that. I think both sides have realized that in a changing order, you need to have more alternatives. And the West, the zero-sum thing that India is basically just a count. Even India probably realizes that it cannot only be, the US cannot just view India as a counter to China. India's role is far more important. And then obviously, I mean, when you look at the disruptions which are happening, I guess both sides, even China look at China, look at the access, look at the Indian market, and there's obviously realize the number of opportunities which it has in India. So I think it was pragmatism, but still I think it's a bit premature to say. I would say that yes, tensions have certainly reduced, but you can never really say. But I think both sides realize that even if there are differences over some differences may seem intractable, but you will have to have a working relationship, more so when you have all this thing of trade tariffs. And then, as I said, I mean, I think multilateral organizations are also a bonding factor as well, that you have to find a common ground. in other organizations. There's no other so multiple factors. But still, it's premature to comment that to what degree has this. I mean, what are the areas where both sides will find common ground? If they do find, the more common ground they find, the more. I mean, it's good for Asia. It's good for the global order as well. It will add more certainty.
Do you think that Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has some role in it? Because China has a long history of disappearing leaders. So there was a time for, like, there was a long period of time when Chinese Prime Minister was missing from the site, and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was taking a lead. So do you think that he has some soft corners towards India, and that's why all these things are happening?
See, I think foreign policy in general,
Yeah.
and I think Chinese foreign policy in particular, it's never driven by any soft corner.
Okay.
In other countries, okay, we often talk, but frankly, in foreign policy, personal chemistry. But if you allow personal chemistry to influence foreign policy too much, it's problematic because foreign policy is so wide. And I think it's basically there was no. I mean, once this tariff war started, 2.0. I mean, right. There was no alternative because everybody is being hit, and obviously the challenges of the developing world are very similar. Then you also had Brazil stepping in. Brazil is and other countries have also. I think what we miss out is the role of countries like Russia in what. So there's even talk of this Russia. I mean this resumption of this Russia, India, China trilateral. Then the foreign affairs ministers of BRICS, they met on the sidelines of the UNGA. So a lot of other factors have also come into play. But most important is the changing this tariffs, uncertainty on several issues. Tariffs, again, it's not that they only hit one sector. They basically signal where the world order is also going. So both India and China have also been pitching for a certain amount of. And if you see the PM's speech, the addresses which he made in China, and some media interviews which he had given before, he had spoken about the fact that both countries need to play very important, given their, if you look at the economic aspect and the fact that the uncertainty which is there, without obviously neither China directly named any country or neither India, it's the uncertainty. But this has been but the build-up has been happening over a year and a half. Trump tariffs have made it even. I mean, both sides probably realize that they have that the best.
Trump tariff has actually turned foe into friends, and let's exclude Pakistan from it.
No, well, friends. As I said,
will it affect India-US relationship? Like, seeing you were talking about the trilateral of India, Russia, and China. So, will this friendship and will this trilateral bond will affect India's relationship with US also?
I see. I think even the India-US relationship is. I mean, it's way beyond one individual or these issues. These are major issues. They have probably sent out a message that India needs to diversify its economic relations. But the strategic relationship still is very important, despite whatever has happened. So I don't think, and I think there are elements over there who understand that there has to be nuance, and India has to have, because India has also repeatedly said that while having good relations with the US, you cannot dictate our approach towards things like BRICS or buying Russian oil and things like that. And whatever, behind the scenes, obviously, you have to find a middle path. But at this point of time, I think, and I think what is happening is that a lot of things, the US was becoming inward looking for very long. But this has really, Trump has really made this, he's accelerated this process. And in the world order, at this point of time, there's no certainty. It's after very long, there is this situation, little bit being inward and some sort of uncertainties, that all since 2008, since the economic crisis and then many other, that was there. But the level of uncertainty today,
it's alarming.
Yes. And then obviously countries have to, and especially developing countries have to find a way, where they can respond to this.
So that was Mani sir with us, and he was explaining about this. What could happen after India and China has opened doors for each other, and if you are focusing on, and if you are planning to visit China, so definitely after this month, flights are open for you. I was Ayushi Mittal. You are watching DNA.